Hello, my name is Madame Kopfnuskotze and welcome back to my soulless channel, Booty for Booty, where I will today talk about the true crime story of the Death Angels of Lainz. They were not nurses, a lot of people think they were nurses, they were auxiliary nurses or like station helpers. But before I talk about them, I want to make a brief history look about hospitals and the buildings still available in this city. Now, the building they killed in was the Krankenhaus Lainz. It's now called Klinikum Hitzing. For obvious reasons, they changed the name. And this building was built in 1906 to the 60-year anniversary of the regime from Kaiser Franz Josef, so the king. And it's not the oldest hospital in Vienna. It's a modern hospital, and it is one of the largest. It's also not the largest and not the oldest. And there are two types of hospitals. There is the monastery hospitals, so with churches, the really old ones from the Middle Ages, and then there are the modern hospitals. Most of them were built in. The first one in Austria was built 1784. So there are two buildings that. They're probably more, two of the oldest ones from the monastery hospitals that are still up. They are now just churches. Churches are the Barmherzigenbrüder. It was built 1614 and you can find it in the 2nd district at Dauberstraße. I mean, I think that Barmherzigenbrüder is also now a hospital, so they separated the two. And the other one is built in 1709 and it's the Elisabethinen Kirche. It's still standing at Landstraße, and I think on the opposite side there is an abandoned mansion. And then the oldest still standing modern hospital with no church, no priests, no nuns, was built from, I think, Joseph II. No, I'm not thinking. I'm sure it was Joseph II. He was also called the People's King, and it was built in 1784. And it's the Altes AKH. It used to be called Großarmenhaus. And in this building, it's no longer a hospital. It's now a medical university, but it's no longer the hospital. And in this building, there is also the oldest psychic facility, the Narrenturm. It's a round building, and it was also built in 1784. And the history of this building is also like, it was built as really modern because there has never been such a thing in Europe for psychological illnesses, but it was modern for a really short time, and then yeah, it got a bit disastrous. But let's focus on the main story. The main story are the Death Angels, the 4 Death Angels of Lainz, who killed from 1983 till 1989. And the indicator was her, Waltraud Wagner. And she said her first killing was in 83, and she did it out of mercy because the patient really wanted to die. And that's why she killed them. And then she gathered 3 other ladies, men, woman, I wanted to say woman. This was Irena Leidorf. She was the left hand. Then we have, this is so hard for me. It's not a hard name, but because of how you write it, and if you grow up with a lot of languages, you just always want to read them differently. It's Stefania Meyer. It's written differently, okay? And the youngest one was Maria Gruber. And yeah, so as I said, they were not qualified nurses, and so at this time in the 80s, the hospital has had problems. Like, they had not enough qualified nurses, they had not enough doctors, so they had a lot of helpers. And these 4 women came in, and they had a lot of freedom. They could do things that normally only qualified nurses are allowed to do. Nobody was controlling them, no doctor, nobody was overseeing them. They were also, the station they worked in was a station mainly for really old patients, or it's not like a hospice, but it's not really like hospice, you know. It was a hospital, but the station they worked in was a bit like a hospice, if that makes sense. They were mainly really old people with a lot of chronic illnesses, so death was not unusual. and not unusual. Also, the big amounts of medication was not unusual with these patients. But still, in 1988, there was a nurse. Oh no, she was not a nurse. She was also a helping station, auxiliary nurse, and for her it was a bit fishy, the whole thing, that how many people died and everything. So she informed the doctors and the head of the station, and then they called in the police, but nothing came out of it. So it took 1 year longer till 1998, 89. I'm sorry, languages, numbers, too much. So, and in 89, one doctor had a patient. He was not diabetic, but he had a really, really low blood sugar, and so he called the police. Investigation started, and the 4 nurses got suspended, and it was later revealed that they killed with insulin, Robinol, that's a sleeping medication. I don't know if it's called Robinol anywhere else, but maybe. And yeah, they also did something called mouth care. I will talk about it. So yeah, this is when everything kicked out, and in April of 89 they got arrested and the trial began, and soon in the trial they're starting to blame one person. They did not blame each other, they actually blamed one person, mainly one person, and this was Waltraud Wagner, and she is the head of this whole nurse. She started the whole, and then she started to persuade the others and talk to the others. And a really good friend of her was Irena. So these two were the main suspects, and also the ones that got the highest sentence, and the other two not that much. And so at first, when Wagner was in front of court, she actually committed or she said that she euthanized 49 people, but it was out of mercy. It was not a murder. But later in the trial, she actually committed to 10 murders, and she got a life sentence. And then Irena came in, and she actually blamed mainly Wagner and said, like, yeah, she killed over 100 people and she pushed me to do this, and I didn't want to, but I helped her. And yeah, she explained a lot of things. And one of the things that came out with all the others also was that they killed very often with the so-called mouth care. And after the investigations, they exhumated a lot of patients and they found a lot of water in the lungs. And this can happen, this is not so unusual. But what they did, or what later they said that they did, and how they killed the people, was they holded the patient's head. So one was holding their head and holding their nose so they couldn't breathe. The other one was holding down the tongue and pouring water in the mouth of the patient so they drowned. And I'm sorry, but this is not mercy. Like, drowning somebody like this is in no way a mercy act. I know that there are people putting pillows on other people's head, but still it's also not mercy. Like, this is an act of killing. Like, you feel and see how the person is suffering. You just see how they fight for their life, and it is just cruel. So yeah, this was the main, not the main, but the one that they did quite often was the so-called mouth care. Wagner called it like that in her fun way. And Irene later also said, this one here, she also said that Wagner actually killed everybody who got on her nerves. She didn't like, complain. She just killed random old people that she didn't like, not just because they suffered, but just because they got on her nerve. And then this is Stefania, and she was from, I think, Yugoslavia. And she actually said that she really just killed out of mercy, and she only wanted to kill the ones that suffered. And she described Wagner as a very cruel person who liked to torture and enjoyed everything. She was convicted for 5 murder. No, or I'm not now sure. I am not 100% sure now for how many murders she was convicted. I think she was not convicted for any murders. Now, Wagner was convicted for murders. Irena was convicted Wagner was convicted for 32 murders. Okay, she was not convicted for, like, she was convicted for 32 murders, got life sentence. Irene got convicted for 5 murders, got life sentence. I think Stefania got only convicted for help, no murders, although she might have killed 2 people alone without the help of anybody, with Robnol. And then Maria Gruber, she was the youngest, and she even said at the beginning she did not want to join them, but they started to push, Wagner started to push her, so she started to do this. And yeah, so, and she also got convicted for helping them, and for 15 years. Now she's free. She's free. And they are free since 2008. Because the lifelong sentence in Austria is 22.5 years. I have no idea where the 0.5 is coming from, who sat down and said that, yeah, let's make it 0.5, because 23 is too much and 22 is not enough for a life sentence. So yeah, so she got 20 years, so it's nearly a life sentence, but yeah. And other 2, the main ones, they got out after 19 years, so they got out earlier. So they are all free now. I guess that they are all old, and I guess that they all hope that they have real nurses that really care for the patients and really want to help them and don't drown them with water. So yeah, that's the story of the 4 death angels of Lainz, and that's it. Have a great day, have a good evening, have a good night, have a whatever. And that's it. And bye.